Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Northern Broadcasting Service. Today we are having a fireside chat with Vice Delegate and Security Councilor Sundred. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you.
It's been a busy couple of days for the North Pacific with this influx of new people, hasn't it?
It definitely has. Good to see a bunch of new people joining nation states, specifically the North Pacific, joining the WA, and good to see a good amount of people becoming active and becoming citizens with the North Pacific.
With the influx of new players, that's generally a good thing for us. But doesn't that raise a few security concerns?
Um, in a sense, yes, it does. We're always we have to be vigilant on new people joining and making sure there are not any nefarious characters that threaten the security of the North Pacific. But we also want to be welcoming to these new players. For a vast majority of them, they're going to come in, they're going to play for a while, and unfortunately, some of them probably will, after 30 days, cease to exist and never look at NS again. But there's still a good portion that we can see becoming active and contributing members to the North Pacific, and others might move on to other regions and become active there as well. But yeah, there we do have to be mindful of those who are joining and be cognizant of any security risk that they might pose. So yeah.
So you mentioned that these new players are joining. They're getting citizenship. They're joining the World Assembly. Um, During this process, they should be getting telegrams from the region about endorsing the security counselors and the delegate and the vice delegate. Um, Part of that, do you think the Security Council should take a bit of more active role in teaching these new citizens about regional security and why these endorsements to these groups of people matter?
Yes, I do think that's an important part of the Security Council and stepping up during this time in which many of the Security Council members have stepped up with this influx and reaching out to new players, exchanging endorsements, offering advice, sending telegrams. So far, I've sent out several telegrams to the region regarding endorsements, and I know the delegate has done so as well. And we're hitting new nations with automated telegrams, just giving them more information about the World Assembly and specifically the World Assembly Development Program that is hosted by the delegate and the Security Council. So they're definitely getting hit with a lot of information all at once. Um, so yeah, that's the first aspect of it, but then it's continuate education, describing continued reminders of the importance of exchanging endorsements and the role that the Security Council plays within the region.
So, how would you explain to these new players, which I see there's a few of them in our audience here today, what the role of the Security Council is within the region?
Um, the role of the Security Council is to help ensure obviously the security of the North Pacific, and the question comes about of okay, what does that entail? Um, Primarily, we work to ensure the stability of the delegacy, that the elected delegate is concurrently holding the WA delegacy of the North Pacific. We help prevent coup attempts, um, nations who are rapidly endorsing and could possibly threaten the delegacy by virtue of their endorsements. So we work to ensure that that doesn't happen. We build up our influence to make it harder for our nations to be ejected from the region. Um, at the same time, being able to, if needed, step up and handle any other security issues that may come about. Um, we work to ensure that in the event that the delegate is removed by the regional assembly, that we can step up and take the in-game delegacy away from the nation that's holding it. So there's a variety of ways that the Security Council works to maintain the security and stability of the North Pacific.
So you mentioned that the delegate could be removed by the regional assembly. Vivanco has asked this question, and I'm sure he's asked it here. With the Agora Act passing and our Attorney General's office being dissolved, if we have a rogue delegate and the court needs to intercede, do you think that removal of that chief prosecutor will hinder our ability to respond to a rogue delegate?
I don't believe that it's going to hinder our ability to um, handle a rogue delegacy. Um, then there's several reasons for that. Yes, we may have removed the chief prosecutor, the attorney general from um, our legal system, but we did put into place another system that can, in theory, handle the work of the attorney general. And so, yes, if there's a rogue delegate um, and they refuse to appoint someone, it falls to the next person in line of succession, which becomes the vice delegate. So, in the event that there's something needs to happen with prosecution, yes, there is a way to handle that. Overall, I don't foresee any problem with the Security Council handling a rogue delegate. Um, yeah, that's pretty much where I stand. I'm kind of standing on that one.
All right. So, so back to the rogue delegate question. One of the functions of the Security Council, like you said, is to take over and help remove that rogue delegate. Part
Yes.
of that is the security counselors themselves being rallying points. Now, each
Yes.
security counselor historically has had their own little interactions with specific parts of the community, but in the eyes of some of the public, not as widespread as they would like. So, how would you like to see the Security Council reach out to more aspects of our community?
That is an excellent question, and that is something that has been brought up quite a bit in the past. And I mean, that's not something that is a new criticism of the Security Council. The best way for that criticism to be addressed is for security counselors to be active or to participate regularly with our in-game community, because this is a very important aspect of the security councils. You're not just an active you can't just be an active member in the offsite community through RP or through the forum. You need to have some form of in-game presence, whether that's active endorsing regularly telegramming nations, participating in discussions on the RMB. Um, the other way is by participation in events. With with the North Pacific, it seems like we always have some kind of event going on. Currently, this week we have Security Week going on, celebrating the history of our Security Council members. There's events always going on, and so by actively participating in these kind of events, um, that's truly how members of the Security Council can become known and become rallying points um, for the region. And there is a sense of um, a name game going on. Of this person is very well known. They have a long history with the North Pacific. There's a variety of factors that can go into that, and which all would all be supporting of removing a rogue delegate and providing legitimacy for those actions.
So you mentioned our Security Week event, which is going on, which this radio series is a part of, and we have this influx of players coming into the game, some of which who will stay and take active roles within our region. So, what can the Security Council do to help discover and train those new players to become the next generation of security counselors?
In my opinion, the best way for them to do that, to help train the future security council member, is by encouraging them to get involved, to take the next step in participation within the region, in which becoming a citizen is great and all. But I would encourage them to take part in the role play communities, to take part in uh, becoming a member of the executive staff, working their way up, and eventually becoming a minister, or running for an elected office. Um, there is a myriad of possibilities for them to show their dedication to the region and show that they have the skills and mentality to be a contributing member to the region. Um, all in all, I would not say that any of that is required. There's a minimum requirement to join the Security Council. But with the North Pacific, we want to see someone on the council who has shown dedication to the region and a willingness to serve. And that is one thing we regularly tell people who apply, that as a security council, we may feel that they had they need to build up their resume a little bit more than they already have. And that's our recommendation: is go out, get more experience, come back, and chances are you'll become a new member of the council.
All right. So if you would happen to discover this person who wants to move up to the security council, or even just a new player, how would you explain to them the influence mechanic and how it's used in the role of the security council?
Okay, yes. So influence is earned based on the amount of endorsements you have within the region. It grows every day based on, I believe it's one plus the number of endorsements that you have. So for my nation, Sundred, currently at the time of this broadcast, I have 1,049 endorsements. Um, so as the day goes on and I update with 1,049, I'll get that amount plus one added to my influence count. But the caveat for a game created region is that there is a cap on the amount of endorsements that you can earn. And at a certain point, it starts to decay. So I believe it's after 6 months, your endorsement level starts, or your influence level starts to decay. So you need to keep growing your endorsements to offset that decay.
So this decay is not a mechanic that a user created region would go through?
Correct. User created regions don't experience that influence decay.
So why would they have that benefit over a game created region?
Um, my understanding of the implementation for that is due to just the general size of the game created regions, and to offer a little bit more of a challenge, in my opinion, for these nations to continue endorsing, and instances of that nature.
All right. Since influence is related to endorsements, as you said, how often should individual nations exchange endorsements with the Security Council?
I Security counselors, I would say, need to be, well, they need to be regularly endo-tarting, which I would say needs to be daily, or multiple times per day. We have the mechanics available. Mechanics were available beforehand, but they become even more advanced today, where we're seeing nations on our tools, where we can see them as they're coming in the region. New WA nations, people who are WA nations and are moving from regions. We're seeing those. So as Security Council members, we should be able to endotart multiple times per day. But I do realize there is a balance of a lot of people do have real life that they have to take into consideration. So doing it multiple times a day is not feasible. So at least once a day at a minimum should be what we're looking at. But like I said, sometimes real life just kind of can break that up, and which is completely understandable. Not saying that real life oversees anything that goes on, or should be real life should not be put to the side for NS. If you have something going on with real life, obviously focus on that. We'll still be here tomorrow. There are enough members of the Security Council where we can handle that. But in general, they should be endotarding daily. And I would recommend the same to any other nation out there is endotart daily. Build up your numbers, build up your influence, because that offers you more opportunities to win awards, win World Assembly Development Program awards, win cars, become a Keeper of the North, build up your own influence. So there's a lot of opportunities and benefits to endotarding daily. For me personally, I would rather give out 10 to 15 endorsements a day rather than wait a week and then have 200 some odd endorsements I have to give out in one sitting.
Right. You mentioned daily endotarding by security counselors. A recent topic within our region has been transparency and activity measurement of the Security Council. And recently we saw that the Security Council has opened up a public thread where they're discussing becoming more transparent to the region. At the same time, the Security Council does have matters that have to remain secret in order to ensure the security of the region. So how would you balance the need for secrecy in some matters versus the region's need to know that the Security Council is active in how they're thinking about these topics?
And that's a very good question. And it's a question that I've mulled over from, and my position has somewhat changed. It depends on the lens that you look at it. As a publicly elected official, I want to show that we are what we are doing on a day-to-day basis. As a member of the Security Council, I also understand, okay, there's some things we can't just talk about open. And so there comes a balance of, okay, what can we say, but also protect the integrity of that information? Because there are some conversations that do take place within the council that demand a certain level of confidentiality. And as the Security Council, we are also very frank. We say things from a lens of little to no politicalization. And for some players, those kind of conversations, once they get out of that chamber, they become ammo for other people to use against them to hurt the Security Counselor's credibility if those statements were given out. So it's all given with the confidence, okay, this is going to be held confidential. And I can be very, very open and very, very frank about my conversation. But at the same time, the people want to see, okay, what is the Security Council doing? What activities are they doing today? And so it's finding that good balance and coming up with procedures for where we can discuss what we're talking about to an extent. We can give you the gist, but we're not going to give you all the nitty-gritty details about it. And ultimately, that's what I feel like this public credibility thread that we started in the Security Council chambers is really hitting on. Identifying what we can share, developing the guidelines for what information can be shared, and just some other just general guidelines that we want to help institute for the council and future vice delegates who may not have been a member of the Security Council in the past or not an active member of the Security Council.
All right. In the same vein of talking about secrecy, outside of some straight up tools that we have within the region itself, such as citizen checks and updates and monitoring of logins, we have, as a region, have to rely on the Security Council to self-police its members due to these secrecy issues. So, when would the Security Council find it appropriate to initiate a recall of another member?
That is a very good question, and I kind of want to refer to a situation that happened about a year ago with a former member called Romanoff. He had been a longtime member of the Security Council, but he was very, very inactive. Um, to the point of his endorsement numbers were being held aloft by the development program that regularly promoted his nation through telegrams and dispatches. That those were holding up his nation in terms of endorsement count and influence. But when you started looking deeper into his activity, you were seeing he was only posting every so often enough just to keep citizenship. He was only barely maintaining his numbers. His endorsements that had been given out were extremely low. And to that point, that kind of just paints a picture, because that's the best way to analyze if it's time for someone to be recalled. You have to look at the big picture. There has to be just something that builds a picture of this person is just not fit for the job anymore. They're not doing what we need them to do to help with the security of the region. And so at that point, the ones who are going to see it the quickest are going to be members of the Security Council. And we are very frank with them. And so if at some point we see someone who's not picking up their slack, we're going to say, hey, something's not working out here. We need you to step it up. And kind of at that point, if it doesn't go any further and they're not receptive to the discussion that we're having, then at that point it's kind of like, okay, we've tried working with you, but I think it's time we need to go to the regional assembly.
All right. And I didn't know about Romanoff. I'm kind of new to the region myself. I'm sure our listeners are going to be looking a bit more into him. So we discussed here what was a bad counselor, a counselor that came in that was doing the bare minimum just to survive, who wasn't responsive. So, in your opinion, what makes a good security counselor? What should a nation applying to the Security Council strive to achieve?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's multiple ways you can be considered a good Security Council member. There's not just one solid definition, in my opinion, because everyone has their own and everyone has their own weaknesses. And so, kind of in general, what I would say a good Security Council member is someone who's active, someone who engages with the community, and is someone who has shown their service to the region, either through as a member of the executive staff, serving on the election commission, becoming a minister, participating actively and quite a bit with the role play communities, both in the forum and the RMB, full participation in the RMB, becoming a member of the Gainside Advocates. There's so many paths that can make a good security counselor. And in my opinion, a big facet of all that is activity and dependability. Without those two qualities, you don't really have the makings for a good security council member.
All right. We do appreciate you coming on and having your frank discussion with us. We appreciate your transparency in this. We look forward to seeing your AMA on the RMB. Thanks for coming by, Sundred.
All right, thank y'all. Looking forward to seeing y'all.
And a big thanks to you two listeners. This broadcast will be replayed on our YouTube, and we hope you come and join us for our future shows.